Superhero succession stories are notoriously difficult to get right. For every passing of the torch that feels earned, there are a dozen that feel awkward, temporary, or are completely resented by the fans. Audiences are creatures of habit, and long-running heroes become cultural fixtures that people don't just follow, but they live with. Replace them too casually and the new character feels like an imposter. Replace them too reverently and they're crushed beneath the weight of the legend. The mask may change, but the audience's loyalty often doesn't. And yet every so often a story cracks the code. It understands that succession isn't necessarily about lineage or seniority, but about timing, context, and necessity. Batman Beyond is one of those rare cases, and its pilot two-parter, Rebirth, introduces a new Batman who has been widely accepted by fans, and they achieve this through clarity about why Bruce Wayne cannot continue as Batman, why Gotham has changed, and why the person who eventually dons the cowl was never meant to be the obvious choice. From the moment Rebirth aired, audiences didn't just tolerate a new Batman, they embraced him. As far as I recall, there weren't any fan petitions demanding his removal, no sulking, or debates about if he deserved the mantle. Generally speaking, he was well received. Terry McGinnis arrived fully formed, carrying a spark that felt both familiar and refreshingly unpredictable, and the show made one thing clear from the start. This wasn't a placeholder in a red and black suit. This was Batman's future, delivered with confidence, verve, and a cheeky grin that suggested he might actually enjoy the job. What makes Rebirth so remarkable is how deliberately it clears the stage. It doesn't hand Terry the keys to the cave because the writers wanted a teenage spin-off. It builds a world where a successor is not only plausible, but necessary. Neo-Gotham is harsher, louder, and more corrupt than anything Bruce Wayne ever faced. The threats are different, the city is different, and crucially, the story is honest enough to admit that Batman must change too. Terry fits this world like a glove. He's angry but compassionate, impulsive but adaptable, shaped by tragedy yet not defined by it. And with Bruce still present, albeit bitter, brilliant, and reluctantly supportive, Rebirth gives Terry something few other would-be heirs ever truly had, a mantle passed on with intent, not accident. From the outset, the show doesn't ask the audience to accept Terry. It shows why he works and trusts them to follow along, and that makes all the difference. When Batman Beyond went into production, no one on the creative team planned to reinvent The Dark Knight. They were told to do it by the WB Network president Jamie Kellner. For as well as Batman the Animated Series and Superman the Animated Series has performed, one area the network felt they had failed in was capturing the youngest audience. Kellner believed that the problem wasn't the time slot or the landscape, but the character himself. When the new Batman adventures failed to secure the youngest demographic the network wanted, Kellner concluded that children simply didn't relate to Bruce Wayne. His solution was blunt. Batman needs to be younger, and he needs to sell toys. That mandate could easily have produced a shallow, neon-dripped cash grab. A teenage Batman designed by committee, stripped of nuance and built for shelves rather than stories. But the creative team didn't take the easy route. It's worth mentioning that they weren't immediately enthusiastic about the idea, but if their bosses demanded a new Batman, then the real question became this: how do you create a successor who isn't a diluted Bruce Wayne, a failed Robin promotion, or a tired gimmick? The answer was to rebuild Gotham, rebuild the mission, and rethink what Batman looks like when the world around him evolves faster than he can. Batman Beyond exists because the creators refused to slap a teen in a cape and call it a day. They responded to executive pressure by crafting a world where a successor didn't feel cynical or optional, but completely necessary. And I think that opening section set during Bruce Wayne's final night as Batman is absolutely key in this. In my opinion, too many hero replacement stories just have the original character go missing for some reason, and someone steps up to fill the void. Now, there's nothing wrong with this trope per se, but it leaves the original hero's return open, so you'll always have fans that refuse to accept the new guy because they're waiting for the original to come back like some jilted bride on their wedding day. Similarly, when they kill off a hero and the replacement arrives, sometimes the memory of who the original hero was works against the new version. Again, there's nothing necessarily wrong with those kinds of stories, but they have their pitfalls. And Batman Beyond evades those entirely by showing us why Bruce Wayne can no longer be Batman. The opening flashback shows he was still a capable fighter, but his body couldn't keep up with his spirit. There's a line in the beat-ass episode I Am the Night where Batman talks about his self-doubt and how he knows that one day it will all come to an end. It might come at the Joker's hands, or Two-Face's, or some punk that gets lucky, and that's exactly what happens here. Batman has a heart attack while rescuing a hostage, and one of the kidnappers seizes his chance to take Batman down, savagely beating him with a wrench. In desperation, Batman reaches for a gun and seems fully prepared to shoot the man. And that's the moment that Batman stops being Batman. A punk with a gun took his parents from him, and now here he was laying on the floor, broken and bleeding, pointing a gun at some other punk. Lesser shows would have over-explained, not trusting the actors or the artists to properly convey Batman's feelings, but this was not their first rodeo. Very few words are uttered, but Batman's disgust with himself and despair is evident. The scene ends with him putting his costume away and saying, "Never again," and we completely understand why. Dedicating a few minutes to explaining why Batman stopped being Batman, it's not just that he got too old and run down, he came too close to breaking his sacred vow, immediately shuts down any arguments that Bruce Wayne should have continued. And the fact that there was no Batman in Neo-Gotham for 20 years helps cement that. It's an unrecognisable place now, with towering futuristic skyscrapers dwarfing the original Art Deco buildings. The streets are overrun with aimless teens dressed as the Joker, and the mega-corporations have seemingly seized control of the place. Hell, it's not even called Gotham City anymore, it's Neo-Gotham, New Gotham, a separate place built on the ruins of whatever came before, which is a lovely metaphor for this new Batman as a whole. By the time we see Bruce Wayne again halfway through the episode, he can't walk without the use of a cane. And yeah, sure, he can still beat up a gang of nobodies cosplaying as his worst enemy, but that's not the same thing as being Batman. It's a really sad ending for someone who saved the world more times than we can count and gave so much of himself to ensure other people's safety. Now, it would have been easy, expected even, for Dick Grayson or Tim Drake to inherit the cowl. Comic book logic all but demands it. How many times has Batman died or gone missing only for one of the Robins to take his place? At least 3 times off the top of my head, but I bet there are more. However, the animated shows are different. The reasons this didn't happen are touched upon in some of my other videos, such as the one about Batman Beyond's version of the Joker from Return of the Joker, linked to in the info button, so add that to your watch later list if you haven't already seen it. But what Batman Beyond understands, and what gives Terry McGinnis his weight, is that this version of the Bat family was never a conveyor belt. It was a collection of people, each scarred differently by the same war, each eventually pulled in directions Batman couldn't control. Life, inconveniently, didn't respect legacy plans. It wasn't because Dick or Tim failed, but because the Bat family itself fractured under the weight of the role long before Bruce ever stopped being Batman. As such, Dick leaves Gotham and Batman behind entirely to become his own man. Tim stayed too long and paid a price that permanently alters his relationship with costume vigilantism, and Barbara hung up her cape and cowl to focus on her legacy as the next Commissioner Gordon. By the time Bruce finally walks away, there is no natural heir waiting in the wings, only the aftermath of choices made in the name of the mission. Life didn't line the pieces up neatly. It scattered them. That's why Terry McGinnis as the new Batman completely makes sense. He isn't the next logical step in a lineage, not by a long shot. If anything, he's the result of a vacuum. Terry becomes Batman because Neo-Gotham still demands that one exists, and everyone else has already been spent. In the world of Batman Beyond, that isn't a compromise, that is the point. Couple this with the fact that Bruce remains involved in Terry's training, being his guy in a chair before that was a more widespread thing, and it adds authenticity. It's essentially Batman's stamp of approval. And really, I think Bruce lives vicariously through Terry. It's why he sits in the cave, monitoring what Terry can see, and issuing instructions. It's the closest thing he'll get to donning the cape and cowl again. But that's not to say that Terry is a mindless drone doing what Bruce tells him, or a mere carbon copy of Bruce. And for those that have seen the Justice League Unlimited episode epilogue, no, we do not use the C word to describe Terry. He's his own Batman. He may not be a great strategist or a master detective, but he has good instincts and can think on the fly. Similarly, where Batman felt very deeply and put up emotional armor to try and protect his feelings, Terry wears his heart on his sleeve. That means he can be quick to anger, yes, but he cares deeply for his fellow man. Likewise, he loves a good quip and isn't above insulting his foes. Very much like Spider-Man, who was a direct inspiration, which may also go some way towards explaining why he's been embraced by fans. Likewise, his motivations to become Batman are similar to Bruce's, but different enough to set him apart. Initially, he believes that his father had been murdered by a gang of Jokers out for revenge after he and Bruce had humiliated them. That gives him the guilt that traditionally drives Batman. However, he quickly learns that the unscrupulous Derek Powers had ordered his father's murder after he discovered that Powers had developed a devastating nerve gas and was illegally selling it to the warmongering nation Kaznia. And this is really what sets Terry apart from Bruce. Bruce felt compelled to be Batman due to his own feelings of rage and inadequacy over his parents' murder. He blamed himself and decided to dedicate his life to stopping similar things from happening again. Terry initially feels blame, but is quickly exonerated. However, he still wants to be Batman. He isn't driven by guilt over his father's death, he's driven by a desire to be a better person and to help others. This makes Terry feel like his own Batman, not a shadow or a student. And arguably one of the most defining moments of his origin comes in Rebirth Part 2, when he steals the Batsuit to go after Derek Powers. Now, Powers had attempted to murder Terry after he came into possession of the evidence his father had against Powers. Terry had thought that Powers' crimes, using the company that Bruce Wayne co-owns, would be enough to get the old man back in the Batsuit, not realizing why Batman had given up being Batman. He's angered by Bruce's refusal to step in, and after escaping from Powers, he decides to steal the costume and takes matters into his own hands. Given that he's inexperienced, he quickly gets spotted by Powers' armed guards. With the power of the Batsuit at his disposal, he makes fairly short work of them, until Bruce Wayne realizes that the suit is gone and hits the remote kill switch, leaving Terry trapped and unable to defend himself. Bruce can hear everything that's going on through the two-way radio, the guards kicking Terry's head in before they pull out their guns. It's clear that they plan to murder him, but Bruce is reluctant to turn the suit back on. It's kind of messed up that he can hear Terry being brutalized and has the power to stop it, but doesn't do it immediately. Even when Terry tells him he's about to be murdered, Bruce is conflicted. Ultimately, it's the disapproving look from his dog Ace that sways him to restore power to the suit. Lesser shows would have had Bruce monologuing about his dilemma, explaining his conflicted feelings, but once again, the writers trusted the artists and actors to be able to convey the emotion without over-explaining, and crucially, they trusted us, the audience, to understand. It was intended to be a one-off, but Bruce sees his own tragedy reflected in Terry. It's not exactly the same story, he still has his mother and younger brother, but the emotional response is the same, and Bruce Wayne had spent much of his life taking in wounded strays and helping them to take their negative feelings and turning them into something good. So ultimately, that's why Terry becomes Batman. He's not some placeholder holding the fort until the real Batman returns. He's not a sidekick in waiting. He is his own Batman, one that respects the legacy that came before him, but has the courage to do things differently in a very different Gotham City. And crucially, it's that acceptance from Bruce Wayne that authenticates him. That's why audiences accept him, and why Rebirth remains one of the strongest superhero succession stories ever told. Okay, that's it for this essay. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, leave a comment, tell all your friends about me. You know how YouTube works. If you really liked the video and feel like tossing a buck or two my way, please consider using the thanks button, because every little helps. And if you have really enjoyed my work, you might want to pick up a copy of my book, Rogues Gallery. It features 22 essays on villains from Batman the Animated Series. There's a beautiful cover by Batman the Animated Series background artist John Calmette, a foreword by director Dan Reber, and a moving segment from the late Kevin Conroy sharing his thoughts on life, love, and loss. Plus, an exclusive essay on the Condiment King that will never be made into a video. Rogues Gallery is available worldwide on Amazon, both digitally and in softcover. Finally, channel memberships are just $1.99 a month and give you early access to my essays, custom emojis, and your name featured on my members end screen, which has been rolling for a little while now. Huge thanks to everyone who's already part of this. You've helped to make these videos possible. If you want to see your name up here too, join the channel now. Next time, when I return on Monday, I'm going to conclude my look at the villain scene in Beware the Batman by talking about Tobias Whale and how he continues Batman's long-standing habit of borrowing villains from other heroes' rogues galleries. And next Friday, it'll be time to return to the results of my latest Batman Beyond villain poll with a little bit of Static Shock thrown in for good measure. Yes, we're going to be talking about the snake-worshipping cult, Cobra. Hope to see you then.